Just before I call to order, Donna, our former CAO, Waddell, gave me a call yesterday. She did get a call from the province. She will be a member of the Lands Matters Advisory Group. Wanted to thank council for the resolution that was passed. And it might be a good idea, Councillor Duffy, to bring her into planning committee someday to share some thoughts with her.
Sure. Yeah.
Declarations of conflict of interest, any?
See none?
None. Proof?
Do I have any?
On what? One of the readings?
No, on the, maybe that's in camera, is it?
Oh, well, that's under closed session.
Sorry, that's on.
That's closed session.
Yes,
Never
that's
mind.
Okay, approval of agenda, we have A, B, and C.
Move.
Moved. Seconded by Councillor McLeod?
Yeah, you got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Twill in favor?
Yes.
Councillor McKay?
Yeah.
And Councillor Duran, is he online? So we're missing two, Councillor Duran and Rivard, correct? So we have eight. Okay, second reading of the City of Charlottetown Traffic Bylaw, number 2020-TB-01.
Yes, Your Worship, to repeal the City of Charlottetown Traffic Bylaw 2018-06, which was approved and adopted January 14th, 2019, and replaced with the attached Traffic Bylaw 2020-TB-01, moved by Councilor Ramsey, seconded by Councilor McLeod. Be resolved that the City of Charlottetown Traffic Bylaw 2020-TB-01 was be read a second time, and that the said bylaw be now adopted, Your Worship.
Shall it carry?
Carry.
Councillor Twill, shall it carry?
Carry.
Councillor McKay?
Yes.
Okay, 8-0. And Councillor Duran and Rivard are absent. Want to read the next one, sir?
Yes, Your Worship, to adopt bylaw P8Z2.2036, a bylaw to amend the zoning development bylaw to rezone the subject property located at 428 Queen Street, PID 368134, from the medium density residential R3 zone to the mixed use corridor MUC zone. Whereas the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning development bylaw P8ZD.2036 as it pertains to 428 Queen Street, PID 368134, as attached, was read and approved a first time on October 13th, 2020. Therefore, be resolved that the said bylaw be now read a second time, moved by Councilor Duffy, second by Councilor McKay.
Shall I carry?
Carry.
Okay.
Be it therefore resolved that the said bylaw be approved and adopted, moved by Councilor Duffy, second by Councilor McKay.
Shall I carry?
Carry.
Okay, Councillor Twill, yes?
Yeah.
Councillor McKay?
Yeah.
Next one, sir.
Your Worship, to adopt bylaw P8ZD.2038, a bylaw to amend the zoning development bylaw, to amend the development concept plan and development agreement by amending Appendix B of the zoning and development bylaw for the property at 45 Towers Road, lot 2014-4, PID 1076694. Whereas the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw P8ZD.2038 as pertains to 45 Towers Road, lot 2014-4, PID 1076694, as attached, was read and approved a first time on October 13th, 2020. Therefore, be resolved that the said bylaw be read a second time, moved by Councilor Duffy, second by Councilor McKay.
Shall it carry?
Pass.
Councillor Twill?
Pass.
Councillor McKay?
Pass.
Okay, 8-0.
Be resolved that the said bylaw be approved and adopted, moved by Councilor Duffy, second by Councilor McKay. Your Worship.
Shall I pass?
Pass.
8-0. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, sir, next one.
Do you want to get the other two to agree, Your Worship?
What's that?
Do you want to get the other two to agree? Do you want-
They agreed? Councillor,
Yeah, they agree.
they agreed.
Yeah.
Councillor Twill, you agreed?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Councillor McKay?
Yes.
Yes, oh yeah, no, they said yes.
To adopt bylaw PHZD.2039, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to rezone a portion of the subject property located at 12 Valley Street, PID 358192, from low-density residential R2 zone to the mixed-use corridor MUC zone. Whereas the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw PHZD.2039 as pertains to a portion of 12 Valley Street, PID 358192, as attached, was read and approved a first time on October 13th, 2020. Be resolved that the bylaw be read a second time, moved by Councillor Duffy, second by Councillor McKay.
Shall it pass?
Pass.
Councillor Twill, yea or nay?
Pass.
Councillor McKay?
Pass.
Okay, sir.
Be resolved that the said bylaw be approved and adopted, moved by Councillor Duffy, second by Councillor McKay.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Councillor Twill, yes?
I said yes.
Councillor McKay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're on to item C, correct, sir?
Correct, Your Worship?
Okay. So we want to have Karen Campbell go through it, or do you want to go through
We'll
it?
do an overview, and Your Worship, and if council has any questions and legal counsel, Karen is here to respond. Basically, what you have before you are proposed amendments by the province. They've asked for feedbacks from all municipalities across the province. Our deadline is tomorrow. And so what you see before you is what their intent is, what the existing language is, and what they're proposed. The parts marked in yellow, based upon conversations of last week and correspondence from members of council that I received, have been incorporated in those yellow markings. If you see no issue with amendment, it means I never have received any, I did not receive any issue from any member of council. Where you see other commentary in the yellow, then that is from other discussions from members of council or other issues that were brought forward from other issues raised prior. And so page 1 is clear that if there's no issues with the amendments, then we can turn to the next page. But
We go by page.
We're going by page.
Okay, so I'll wait to come.
Councillor McKay?
Hi, thank you. So are you just doing it page by page? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I had a hard time hearing that.
yes, if we can go page by page, I think that'd be easier for people to follow through.
Okay, thank you.
So page 1, based
When you
upon.
get to 98.4, I just have a question.
Okay. Based upon, again, what we've heard, there is no issues with page 1,
Yep.
no issues with page 2, no issues with the majority of page 3, other than there was some commentary from council to include the issue that if you miss 3 consecutive council meetings, then you are not a member of council anymore without reason. So if you're sick or been excused, then obviously you would not adhere to this part of the bylaw. But if you missed 3 consecutive, it was brought forward whether or not we should include council or committees of council as well. So that's here for council's discussion.
On what one, sir?
On 98.4, what we just talked about. So, it's.
No, we're not there yet.
The change is.
Yes, we are.
We're there at 98.
Pay attention.
On page 3, Richard, bottom of the page.
Or a committee of council. So are we talking about,
I have the big one here. Go ahead, sir.
are we talking about when you chair a committee
No, this is if you, and if I, and
or a member of a committee?
from it as, if you miss 3 consecutive committee meetings, then you would also, this would also kick in. So,
Can I ask a question on that when he's finished? I just can't see when he's finished.
Okay. Go ahead, Julie.
my question only is, and my only concern, and of course it probably is a little bit of a selfish one, is we just need to make sure then that the people on the committees are able to, it's got to be a flexible time to have the committee meeting. Because I know for me at the time, if everybody held those meetings, it would be challenging for me to make those meetings, and it could be that I'd miss 3, and I hope that that's part of consideration.
Yeah, and I hear Julie, and I'm wondering if that's the little strong language for a committee member.
So,
I think it needs to be there, I just don't know if it needs to be 3 as a committee member. I think-
What's that? To be what? did
Well,
you
what we're
say?
saying here now is if a committee member misses 3 committee meetings, he's
Consecutive
no longer
meetings.
a council. I'm not sure your constituents would be happy with that.
So if council doesn't wish to have it here, again, it was brought forward by a member of council for discussion. It's here. If you don't want that there, obviously that can be struck, and that is no longer an issue.
Well, I think something needs to be in there, I just don't know if it needs to be disqualified after 3 meetings. I think we have to look at having something there. That seems strong language
I
to
thought
disqualify.
the committee or the council would go to, it would be breach of code of conduct, and then you go through that process.
So Karen wants to add some commentary.
I'm sorry, I get regularly scheduled meetings of council because
That's-
those are the monthly meetings
That's
of
right.
council. I do have a question around what you would call a regularly scheduled meeting of a committee.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you meet at, 4 o'clock every third Wednesday
No.
of the month, right?
Yes,
They
it
would
is.
be
Well, they do.
randomly
Yeah, we do. No,
scheduled.
it is fixed, sorry, for the most part, it's usually fixed on a day at a time. So it would be a regularly scheduled committee meeting as well.
Monthly meeting.
It would be
But
a
they
month-
do- but
it's
they do
regular
get
monthly
changed.
meeting.
At the discretion of the
Time to
chair,
time.
though.
But they're fixed by discretion of the chair and they would be changed by discretion
That's
of the
right.
chair?
Not for the most
So I
part.
just,
For the most part, they are trying to get the second Monday, the fourth Tuesday, whatever, and they try to stick to that time frame. At times, depending what's going on,
But
there is.
you guys set your regular meetings by resolution, right? So that's not at anybody's discretion,
Correct.
right?
But
So
this way, it is at the mayor's discretion. If by chance there's nothing on or nothing urgent,
he could cancel
he
it.
can cancel it.
Okay,
But at the same
He doesn't,
time-
he doesn't
Yeah.
have discretion to set it
No.
whenever he chooses.
No.
just one second.
Just-
Councilor Yankoff is waiting to ask a question.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just looking at the wording, could we include the committees in there? But,
Names?
no, include that you can't miss more than 3 meetings without permission or without maybe going through the mayor, just like they do similarly in the provincial where you get your permission to be able to leave based on with the mayor. So that therefore, if it was the case of Councilor McCabe who couldn't make a meeting because she was at school, then she could write an email to the mayor and say, due to my conflict of being in school, and then she gets a hall pass. It doesn't count.
Yeah, I see. Could I just ask, I went through the government's presentation. Did we add this?
Yeah, sure.
But, so they're not suggesting anything, the government?
So,
Oh, this is our suggestion.
Yeah.
so your worship, last time we met,
Oh,
you asked members of council,
That's what I wanted.
your worship, you asked members of council if they have any issues to add, please forward them to us, which they did by last Friday. Those have been included in this document. It is here for council's discussion. At your discretion, you can strike anything that you do not wish to put forward to worship, but it was asked and directed by council to forward to us for your discussion.
So Bob Creed said to you, the Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs said, you want to add something there, you can add something there to change.
And
That's what we're doing.
if-
No, but that-
if
is that-
you- And your worship, you recall when we met with the minister, he
Yeah.
told you, yes, if anything else you want to add, please bring it forward.
Okay.
You were in the room.
Councilor Pack?
Just one suggestion I would have, and I don't know if the power is there, but it says council has approved a leave of absence for the member. So if a committee had a problem with one member not showing up for 3 times, could it not be referred to the council advisory committee? And then they would make a recommendation to council to say, yes, this member is not.
You can't put that in the act.
So,
The council advisory would be a place where at least the member could vent and explain why they haven't come to the meeting, and then they would make a recommendation to council. It wouldn't be so hard, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be so black.
So- Just for clarity, Your Worship, we have had discussions around appointments to committees and the responsibility of council members to attend. It may, in discussions with Ann Legal, that it may be a code of conduct violation that then would go through that process. And so, if you don't want it here, then we could reinforce it through the code, and that way it's not a definitive outcome. It goes through a process, Your Worship.
So that's the question that I had. Why wouldn't we just look at having this? Because it is a committee, and I agree with our legal. I mean, meetings still can change. The chair can change a meeting. If it's an issue, then it can go to the conduct.
Yeah.
They can take a step and go from there, because there's going to be a variable of reasons, and for the most part, I would think that most people have a reason, whether they're sick or whatever. But if there's abuse, then I think it can go to the conduct. This disqualified for 3 meetings a little strong.
And that's council committee, standing committee meetings, not regular council.
That's right. Yeah.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Your Worship. Look, I don't see anything wrong with the way it is written, because let's face it, to miss 3 consecutive, now that's 3 in a row, of course, meetings, I've never known of anyone missing 3 meetings in a row, or, and at the same time, not been seriously ill, or for some other reason, has the approval of a leave of absence for the member. Like, it's more than small L liberal to the members of council. I mean, if someone doesn't ask council for an approval of leave of absence, or comes forward with a sick certificate, or is less than 3 consecutive meetings, man, oh man, that's narrowing it down. I've never heard tell of anyone missing 2 meetings in a row that were genuinely unable to move that. I don't see anything wrong with it. I really don't.
I don't think it's for an act.
3 months. 3 months is a long time.
But this is a statute of the provincial legislature, right? I think it's pretty strong.
Before, what caused this to happen was the council and the mayor had absolutely no control whatsoever. The mayor might have in the olden days before the CAC, but now
we're all accountable.
So I'm not going to show for 5. What are you going to do about it? Well, there's not much, I guess.
Excuse me, am I allowed to, can I?
Councillor Ramsey first, and then you're right after.
No, I mean, what could we do about it? We couldn't do anything about it. This is doing something about it. Now, if it should happen to not sit well with people after it's been in place for a while, you can always amend it back to whatever you want.
It's just a disqualified.
But not this.
But no, you can request the government any time to amend the legislation.
Oh, no, that doesn't happen. Like, you just don't phone them up and say, listen.
No.
There's a process, and
Yeah.
it's the whole island.
Yeah,
And then
Your Worship, when you look at the
Mr.
situation, how many times is this going to arise that, I don't see it. Have you ever known anybody miss 3 meetings in a row of any sort?
Yeah.
Well, for good cause?
No, they were removed from the committee. This is when I was on council.
Yeah, no, and I've got that. They were removed back when the mayor had the authority to do that, but you don't have that authority. Now the CAC does.
But that's much better, because it's a council advisory committee made up of mayor and council.
Yeah.
Councillor Ramsey? No, Ramsey, he had his arm up first.
At the same time, if you can't be here physically, we still have this option that we're doing now, we're calling in, correct?
Correct.
And I'm like Mike too, like in a way that I never knew anyone who missed 3 in a row. And even if they're not here physically, they are participating by calling in. So that's where it saves a lot of people the heartache of driving into Queen Street, I guess. They still have the option of calling in.
Or WebEx in, Skype in.
Yes, exactly. So like I'm like Michael, I don't see a problem.
Councillor McCabe?
Thank you. Sorry, I keep having to hit my mute button. I have no problem either, and I don't miss meetings. I guess my only concern when we put this in writing as a recommendation to go towards the MGA thing is that I would hope that there would be some flexibility within our own council to know when people are, if I'm on a committee, that we know I don't have lunch hour meetings times for more than half an hour. That's usually what I can get once in a while. So I guess I have concern when it goes in writing for the MGA, when we know full well that, you know, when people join and run for the city, that it's nowhere said that you have to be available for 1 to 2 hours over lunchtime, because not everybody has that flexibility. That's my only concern. I don't miss meetings, but I don't plan to miss any, so. That's all.
Councillor Bernard.
Yeah, no, my only issue, I, like I said earlier, I think something needs to be there. I'm just a little concerned with the word disqualified. And I don't think the constituents of that particular person for missing 3 meetings is going to agree to disqualify you from the rest of the council that they've elected. I think that if it goes to the code of conduct route, then whatever happened, all that information comes out, and then they can choose to punish me from the code of conduct.
So if
I
that
think
is,
my only problem is disqualified.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
so if that is the majority consent, then we can strike it from here, Worship, and we can work it in through the code process if you wish for greater definition.
Or, Mr. Kelly, you can leave it and let the government look at it, the provincial government, and plus, we can amend our own procedural bylaw that would that would allow a lot more flexibility with our own bylaw, that if you miss 3 consecutive standing committee meetings, then it's a breach of the code of conduct, and you have to go through the process. That's what you and I discussed.
I think that's the better way to do it.
And if it's here, Your Worship, then the province would take it that we, the majority of you, support this going into the MJ, Your Worship. If it's not your intent or support, then we should strike it from here and put it in the code, Your Worship.
What's the intent? Have a vote. Okay, who wants to keep? You want to say something there,
Yeah,
Councillor
I
Cloud?
just thought, like, if we're having trouble with the language, I mean, we could simply, you know, instead of saying disqualified from holding office for the remainder of the member's term, we could just say that the member will adhere to the city's code of conduct.
Yeah, but you can't put that in an act. That this is a provincial act.
And
It's
this is,
for 59 municipalities.
and this is from council perspective. We're trying to add the other
That's-
words. So this
we're
is a
talking about
council-
our
I think
council.
what you guys suggested with the code of conduct is.
Yeah, it's true. But you know what? Who wants to leave it? Okay, we'll have a vote on who wants to leave it.
I can agree with that proposal, as long as it's being dealt with.
It will be dealt with.
There's an avenue to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can deal with it.
strike it, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Strike.
And
Strike.
no, I have a question. Too late?
Oh, it's never, you can ask all the questions you want.
So if it goes into the code of conduct, and then if it's a breach after 3 meetings, then it becomes, you know, an inquiry to see maybe there's a reason. And then, and so I think it gives a fair opportunity for a council to speak up why they weren't there without being
That's
so
right.
harsh as to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of it.
Because that's the part of the procedural bylaw. This is what governs us.
Yeah.
Right, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Your Worship.
Kevin, you all right to strike it?
Yep.
Councillor Ramsey, sorry. Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Duffy?
Yep.
Councillor Bernard?
Yes.
Kevin? Councillor McLeod?
Yes.
Councillor Yankoff?
Yes.
And Councillor McKay?
Yes.
Councillor Twill?
Okay, what exactly are you doing?
Mr. Kelly, Councillor Twill, do you have the spreadsheet in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you?
Well, I have the one that was put in our package for the council meeting.
Yeah, so you go to page 3. I know it's out of numerical order, but it's 98.4 after 86 subsection 6. Do you see what's there? What we want to do is strike that and put it back to procedural bylaw. Deal with it through the procedural.
Yeah, strike it.
Okay. 8-0. Okay.
So the next one, Your Worship, is one that council sort of dealt with. If you recall, under the remuneration report, there was a section in there where it asked that the mayor not be a voting member of committees. Right now, the province is proposing a different language, and there were a couple points of clarity required that if you are a member of committee, if you are a voting member, then a member of as quorum. Under their intended change that it says, but none of the obligations of membership of the other members of the committee. And maybe you can have Karen give her perspective on this one, because it is a bit uncertain what they're trying to achieve through this process.
Counsel. Counsel.
You tell me.
Legal counsel.
Okay, so one of the quandaries that we get into at the front end of this was how do you determine what the quorum is going to be for all of our committees? So typically the committees would be committees of 3, but then all of a sudden you put the mayor in there and you said, okay, he's got all the rights. So does the mayor then count as a quorum? So if you have a committee of 4, you're going to need 3 of the 4 people here in order to proceed. So the council committee size then went to 5. The idea that you would have 3 if you had 5, or 3 if you had 4, or 2 if you had 3. Now this though doesn't, to me, it doesn't fix that question. It doesn't answer that question of whether it is intended that the mayor would be part of the quorum for every committee that he is a member of. And I'm not sure that the language that you've added in red is going to fix that problem or answer that question. I think all it does is, all this does is clarify that there are certain committees that it's not a part of, but it's not sort of answering that sort of key thing, which is, what is quorum? Is quorum a majority of the people who have been appointed to the committee, excluding the mayor? Or is quorum, so in other words, if I have a committee of 3, and I'm going to need 2 of the 3 to show up in order to have a committee meeting, or does the mayor count for quorum? So if I have a committee of 5, and the mayor is 1 and 2 others, we have enough quorum to proceed. So that's kind of to me, that's the clarity question that you want to get really clear. Like when you say that he's got all the rights of a committee member, I think you're saying that he remains part of the determination of quorum, but I'm not entirely sure.
And in the preamble, it says he is a member of all committees with all rights and privileges. So it means he is a member, and he is able to vote and to be active participation.
But it's funny because it says just went in attendance. Right? That's the funny part of the language.
Yeah.
So if you knew that he was always a part of quorum, then you would say, okay, I'm going to appoint 4 councillors and the mayor's the 5th, and I know I'm going to need 3 every single time. But if he only has those rights when he's there, well, the mayor's a busy guy and he could have lots of things going on. So he doesn't attend, therefore quorum becomes something different. But when he's in attendance, all of a sudden quorum is a bigger number because you have a bigger number of people on the committee. To me, it's just, I find it very confusing, and I think it would be easy for them to give you guys clarity in the language so that you know exactly what you're dealing with every time. That would be my suggestion.
Council Bernard.
Yeah, I think this is something that the council was asking for, to try and get the committees back down to 3.
I think so.
But I have a question for you, Karen. So when I read this, it's by virtue of the mayor's office, the mayor is a member of every committee which the council or mayor establishes under this or another act, other than the electoral boundaries commission, the remuneration and allowance commission, or another independent review commission appointed in accordance with the act. So it says that he's a member except for those. Then it goes on to say, and when in attendance, the mayor possesses all the privileges, including the rights to vote. So, to me, it's saying 2 things. He's either part of the remuneration and the electoral boundaries commission, which they're saying at first he's not. Then it continues on to say that he has, when in attendance, he has all the privileges, including the rights to vote.
I think the intent is that he never had voting privileges or any rights on those 3.
Right, but it doesn't say that. Like, I think that's the intent, because of the first part, it says, other than the Electoral Boundaries Commission, the Remuneration and Allowance Commission, or another independent review commission appointed in accordance with the Act. And when in attendance, the mayor possesses all the privileges, including the right to vote.
Yeah, I don't.
So I think
I didn't
some
read it
wording
that way.
is wrong.
To be honest, I didn't read it that way because I think commas are always important when you're trying to interpret what a statute means. So when you put in commas an exception, then what follows the second comma at the end after right to vote or after and when in attendance doesn't modify the exception inside the 2 commas. I know it's silly, but
That's how it works.
But that's kind of how a statutory interpretation would look at that. It's creating an exception which doesn't get dragged back in at the other end.
Okay.
So the part at the other end applies to every other committee of which he is a member.
Except
You
for
see what I'm
me.
saying? Except that, yeah, exactly. But
Now-
it doesn't answer, and when you say none of the obligations of membership, I'm not sure what that means. I don't know what that means.
And membership's not defined, I don't think is a definition.
Well,
defined
I mean,
in a-
you're a member of every committee, I'm just not sure what it means to say you've none of the obligations of membership. What does that mean?
Because if you look through definitions, it doesn't have membership.
So for
It is-
example, if you, I don't think, for example, that you could by bylaw say that if the mayor missed 3 council meetings, he's off that committee, because you can't amend the MGA by bylaw, right? So it couldn't apply to the mayor, so you can come and go or miss or not.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna happen to you in terms of your attendance, but I don't know what it means. I don't know but none of the obligation of membership, that to me is a bit vague. Because if you're there and you have voting rights, I think you have all the obligations. So, like, for example, if you have a conflict of interest, I don't think we'd be trying to say that you shouldn't have to declare a conflict. I think, obviously, you must and you should declare that conflict. So that language, to me, is creating an ambiguity, because I don't know what it means. And it just leaves open all those sort of arguments about what then is not your responsibility as the mayor of the committee that you have a right to vote on.
Councilor Ramsey,
Yeah, like there's 5
you're
on
next.
every committee now, correct? And that's according to your worship. So even, like, there's always gonna be a 2-1 vote or 3-0 vote or something along that line. I mean, without the mayor's vote, correct?
5 councillors or 5 plus the mayor being 6?
4 councillors and 1 mayor, it's 5.
Yeah.
So if I'm sitting in the chair, for example, and I have my other 3 councillors plus the mayor, and something is gonna be voted on, you're either gonna go 2-1 or 3-0 or whatever it is, right?
Or 2-2.
4 voting,
Or 2-2.
No,
And then-
who's for the vote?
Well, 3 councilors.
3 in the mayor.
If the mayor don't vote, is what I'm saying.
No, but the mayor, sorry, currently the mayor does vote, and so out of the 5 and the members on, 4 have active vote, the chair only votes if tied.
Exactly. But I'm just saying that the thing would still work if the mayor didn't have a voting thing. Because, like, you're still having 3 councillors vote. I don't know if the chair
I see what
sits
you're
in,
saying.
right?
You're saying to go down to 3, the mayor's still
Exactly.
just getting vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here.
Yeah, no, just 1 second. Whoa. Councilor Cloud.
Good, thank you. So, this whole problem occurred when the mayor decided, or when the MGA decided that the mayor could vote, because Robert's rules were, right, that says the chairman has to break a tie. Well, there would never be a tie, right, for the chair to.
Exactly.
Unless there's somebody absent.
If there were 4.
Right.
Like if you have 4 members, that's why you have on even numbers. She
That's
told
right.
us that.
That's right, so that's why we went to 5, right?
Yeah.
So this whole process, I mean, they've complicated with all these sentences, and, I mean, at the end of the day, it's made council a lot busier. And the remuneration committee recognized that, right? That's why we put them to work, and they recognize the fact that if we're not for this, then what is the advantage for the mayor voting? That's the other question I would like to answer. Like, what was the benefit to having the mayor vote? He can always come to all the committees. He always could. So why all of a sudden is the mayor a voting member,
Because with voting, you have rights.
right?
You have a right, and you have a right to express your opinion and then
But
vote
you
on
don't
it.
vote, at a regular monthly meeting of council. You
Yes,
chair.
I do, when
you-
there's a tie.
That's
Right,
right.
there's a time, just like when there's a chair
Yeah.
of the standing committee, so it gets to vote.
Right. But you either gotta be in or you gotta be out. Like the way this is kinda stated, like you're a member if you show up, and if you're not, then you're not a member. But,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, to me, this is, it can be really simple. Then it's just put it back the way it was.
yes, so the original says terminology found, this reflects terminology found in 24.2, 24 section, subsection 2 of sample procedural bylaw. So I went and searched that, and the procedural bylaws, those sample procedural bylaws, came with the MGA. Now, Cornwall decided to leave the responsibility of appointing the chairs
Right.
and the committee members to the mayor. In Stratford, they left it with the mayor, but he had to, or she, would have to take it back to council to get voted on. No CAC. What we decided to do was a CAC, Council Advisory Group. That, my understanding, I have to speak to two ministers that were involved in this, my brother Richard Brown and Robert Mitchell, is that the Section 90 was added to give that collaborative, cooperative, consensual grouping or working together with the council and the mayor. Because council's made up of two offices. Office of the mayor and office of councilor. This was to bring the collaborative, cooperative spirit together. Are we seeing a problem with it at the committee level? With
I just think councillors have expressed their concern that it's made, because we have to put 5 in every, or 4 councillors on every committee now, and plus 2, 5, that creates the councillors being more busy, right? That,
Yeah.
I mean,
Can I jump in?
No, he's not done yet.
our pay hasn't increased, but our workload has. So that's the bottom line, I think with most councils was the fact that they feel that they're a lot busier now. And if they went back the other way, then it would be quite fine. But-
So this council, you have 3 committees, right? And they did council advisory. You have 3 committees, standing committees, you said.
I sit on full council.
Yeah.
4, some 5.
214, 218, how many committees did you sit on? 2 or 3?
3.
Okay. Not a big difference.
Not for me, it isn't, but depending on what committees you're on and what your workload is, right? It's like Councilor McKay said, it makes it much tougher for her to get to every meeting when she's on so many committees, when you're trying to work.
But it's, yeah.
Like, that's where the real issue comes in. I think Councilor Blair can see the same thing, and so can I. And then, of course, what it did cause, which we don't think about, is Councilor Ramsey and Councilor Duffy, who are not working, they get pushed to, like, Mike had 5 committees, or 6 committees, and Kevin had 5. I think Kevin still got 5, and now Mike Duffy's chair of planning, which is 3 more committees, right? So it's definitely increased the workload of council, and I think for me, as the chair of council advisory past, that was brought to light quite frequently, that this has caused a lot more work on council, and when you think about why does the mayor vote, it doesn't really level off the playing field. That's how council feels.
Well, that's why we're up to 5 committee members. Okay, Councilor Twill.
Yeah, just want to follow up on what Councilor McLeod said. That's been the issue right from the get-go, is that there's too many members on each committee causing all this backlog and all these extra meetings, which is totally unnecessary. I think the way to go, and I believe it's in the remuneration report, we all agree to it. I don't know why we're rehashing it now, but we all agreed that when we voted, we all agreed that we would go back to 3-member committees. The mayor would not have a vote, and it would decrease the workload of members of council. I mean, we've been talking about this for the last year and a half, and we all agreed to it. So it's not really complicated, and I think that it makes much more easier for members of council, because the concern was, with all due respect, I think when Councilor Drawn kept bringing it up month after month, it was the workload of sitting on all these committees. It wasn't, and attending all these different committee meetings. It wasn't to deal with changing the committees, but nonetheless that happened. That's fine. But I think we need to go back to where we were previously, and have it back to a 3-member committee. To my mind, that makes it much more advantageous, much more effective for all members of city council.
And that could be the same with 3 members on the committee, the mayor, and 2 members of council, like we had before we get into this.
Well, I'm not so sure, but the mayor, no.
Okay.
And Councilor McLeod's right too. The mayor doesn't vote at council meetings only in the event of a tie.
Right, because I'm the presiding officer.
So therefore, there's no consistency.
Yeah, okay.
There's no consistency. I'm of the mindset, we all agreed when we accepted and approved that report by the Remunerations Committee. We had Judge Gerald
Mitchell,
former Mayor George McDonald, and Chartered Accountant Stan McPherson. These people have been around the city a long time. We all agreed to it. I say we go with that recommendation and start to make things a lot more easier for all 10 members of city council, because right now, to be quite frank with everyone, it's not working.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, I want to just direct place is falling apart. Smokes. Who's in charge of public works around this? You.
That happened before the new chair.
Before the new chair.
I'd just like to ask Karen Campbell what her thoughts are. I have on the following. Like, I'm kind of a strange bird in the fact that I regard the mayor's duties different from the councillors. The councillors are kind of like the working bees in the hive type of thing, the drones that go out and do the work and chair the committees, get the committees together, get the research together on issues and concerns and projects and that sort of thing, and then bring it into the council chamber here as a group representing our standing committees. That we all do basically the same type of work, but in different facets of the city, be it public works, fire and police, or finance, whatever. But the mayor's role is different, is entirely different from a city councillor. The mayor's role is to be the chair of this group we call city council.
Correct.
To make sure the meetings are conducted in an orderly manner, make sure everybody has time to speak, make sure we're courteous and respectful of each other. And be the spokesperson for the decisions, and this is the nub of and that's a David Hooley term, by the way, Karen. This is the nub of the issue. The decisions and the work are done. The decisions being by the committees and are reported to council by the chair. You, by this virtue of this legislation, where the mayor is a member of the working committees, the working groups, it's kind of in a collision course with what I consider to be the role and responsibilities of the mayor. When the decisions are made by this group here, then the mayor takes over and he is the person who represents council and delivers the message to the general public, that sort of thing. By having the mayor in the working group, it's on a collision course. Do you agree with that, Karen? Do you see that as a...
Honestly, I don't really, it's definitely a change, because
Yeah.
the mayor was always not a counted,
Noes.
if you will, on any decision at a committee level, tie or no tie, and was only ever a vote at council if they're in order to break a tie. So I think it's fair to say that when the Municipal Government Act was passed and the province decided that the mayor was going to be a member of committees and was going to have a vote in terms of the conduct of the business of those committees, that they made, I think, a fundamental structural change to the role of the mayor.
Yeah.
Question.
And if I could add, Karen, from 1855 to 2018, the office of the mayor was responsible, he or she, to choose the chairs and the members at large of the standing committees.
Outstanding committee.
Yeah, after 2018, that changed. And that's why I said that Section 90 was to bring in more collaboration, cooperation between the two offices. But
Just on a point.
Councillor Ramsey has his hand up. You'll go up after.
And it's, and I'm just trying, like, I mean, to me, it makes no difference. And I respect the mayor's chair, but at the same time, why would you want to be sitting in on 10 groups when you have other work to do,
Yeah.
I guess? That's what I try to get in my mind, is that you can put your time towards something else with the city of Charlottetown, but why do you want to be involved in having 10 committees? I don't know, like, and that's something that us old councillors are probably not adjusted to, because before the MGA Act, I mean, the mayor only sat in one day, and that was intergovernmental affairs, I believe, wasn't it?
No, I know. I have a full-time
Yeah.
job. It's
Exactly.
part-time pay.
Yeah. We're all in.
Okay, Councillor Twill?
Yeah, just a clarification. Prior to the Charlottetown Area Municipalities Act being enacted in 1994,
Yes.
prior to that, the old Charlottetown City Act, all committees were approved by resolution. All committees
Councillor?
were approved by resolution of City Council. You would recall that, Councillor Duffy. But prior to
No, Rich,
the Charlottetown Area Municipalities Act, prior to amalgamation, if you go back to the 7 former municipalities, I can only speak for Charlottetown, because he used to attend the meetings, a resolution would be passed, so the mayor could make a recommendation, it was council that had the final say.
Well, that's not what we have now, because we have the CAC.
No, yeah, I know what we have now, but what we have now, there's too many disparities and discrepancies, and that's why we're having this debate now, to bring it back down to a three-member committee. And Councilor Duffy's right, the mayor chairs the council meetings, and is a spokesperson once council renders a decision. End of story.
Okay. Councillor Bernard.
So why don't we, because the provincial government have to okay this, right? So if we already agreed with the remuneration committee,
Yeah.
then why don't we just move this ahead? And if they agree with it, then fine. The mayor still comes to all the committees. You can have three on it, the mayor comes come. And if they reject it, then it continues on.
But Councillor Bernard and Councillor Twill mentioned this, and I know that Mr. Kelly keeps bringing this up. They did recommend reducing the number of council committees. Now, CAC, getting input from the councillors, wanted to keep the 10 committees, right? That was what we want. And limiting the mayor to 2 terms. I know at our next CAC meeting, I'm going to bring that up to see if we can incorporate that into the procedural bylaw.
No.
You can't do that? Well, we'll have a discussion.
Anyway,
Your worship,
You need that, yeah.
right, our rules that govern council are per the MGA, and if the province doesn't have it in here, then it's not
Okay,
possible for you to do.
so I'll have to discuss that we can recommend for the, because the MGA is, the plan is to review it every year, correct? Is that what you were told?
They would like to refresh it as often as they can, your worship, and not leave it static for 40 years, your worship, that's true.
Councillor Yankoff first.
When the Municipalities Act was written, was it 2017, the new one? 2018?
2018 took, passed in 2017.
Okay, so perhaps this was originally put in because this speaks to all the smaller communities across PEI. So for some of the smaller communities that have not as many councillors, therefore they probably couldn't run their meetings without including the mayor
That's
in
right.
the meetings for vote. So, which is why probably we went back to that idea of putting forward to the province of the Charlottetown having its own act, where we could.
Charter.
The charter,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and putting that stuff into that. So maybe this is not the place for it, but I mean, I'm either way. To me, if I'm on 3 committees, then I have way more time to work with residents in the community.
Correct.
It doesn't matter to me, I'm happy to do the 5 committees, but perhaps it's more of a place to put in our charter
Yeah.
than it is to put into this. It's just a thought.
Yeah, no,
The
it's,
MGA governs it though.
Does the MGA then govern the charter as well?
So right now, there is no charter.
We're working
have
on it.
a desire to go in that direction. That'll be a year or 2 or more process. So this is what they want to address in the fall, and that will come after that.
because the charter from Halifax has 20 sections to it. Taxes, governance, planning, so it's an extensive document. Councillor McLeod.
So, just on your comment there about the 2 terms, I believe that was in the letter that we did send down.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Council advisory did recommend that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, are we saying it's not in here?
it's not here.
It's not here. Okay, that's one point we should probably
Bring up.
forward then.
Okay, can we move on?
now, what's the recommendation?
What's there in the yellow on page 4?
I think the recommendation is to, at least I thought it was to move with what was in the remuneration report.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's the letter that went. Okay,
So,
okay. Can,
So, point of order, is that what we're going with?
yes, yes,
You may want to poll, Councillor. just to be sure.
okay. Do you wish to go with what we sent
Yes.
to the province, the 5 recommendations, reduce this number of
No,
committees? No, that's in the letter.
So, Your Worship, the province has nothing to do with committee.
No, I know that.
Structure, that's here.
But I'm just referring to the 5 recommendations.
Right, that
And
is
one of them
one of
being-
them, but that is the decision for this
Yeah.
council. What's before council is the element of the mayor to vote or not to vote.
Yeah.
And whether or not they are in favor of these other changes that they're proposing.
Limiting the limiting mayors to 2 terms, that's another issue that we recommended.
That was in the remuneration proposal, Your Worship.
Yeah.
One last thing, so we're not gonna drop it down to 4 or 5.
No,
Now, Councillor Twill, can you let him finish?
No, we're not gonna drop down to 4 or 5 committees, correct?
No, because we've already agreed to that.
Because then it's really gonna be
No,
a
it's 10 committees.
whole circus right there.
Okay. Okay.
Your worship, we're at page 4 at this rate.
I know, Lord,
We're missing
and-
deadline
and
for our dinner time.
Fire chief, we should have moved it to closed session.
If I just might just say that if it's, I can understand the problem not wanting me to put that in because they don't, all municipalities might agree with us that the mayor should be.
But they don't have to put shall, they could put may.
But may, and it could be in our charter request.
Okay.
Let's vote.
Councillor Yankoff.
It's easy.
Can we just be really crystal clear on what it is we're agreeing to here? Because with respect to what Councillor Twill said, it's not quite clear to me what it is we are putting in here for our recommendations. Because correct me if I'm wrong, it's not the 5 recommendations from the remuneration committee, because some of those don't pertain to this.
Right.
So can I have just exactly what the recommendations are that we're including in this blue? Because all the only thing I'm reading, and maybe I'm misreading it, is that we're going to ask that the mayor no longer have a vote.
Number 4, revise the Municipal Government Act that the mayor of Charlottetown is not a voting member of council committees.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then as a domino effect, that then looks at the consideration of reducing the committees to 3 members.
If there is an amendment that may.
If there's an amendment made.
If this in fact happens.
Yeah.
So the only thing we're really agreeing to today is that the mayor no longer has a vote.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear on that.
Which I don't agree with, as you probably can tell. But that being said,
If you just pull.
yeah, no, I know there, is it Deputy Mayor? Council, what's your role there, sir? Deputy Mayor, yea or nay? Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Councillor Yankoff? Yay.
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 Councillor Twill?
that the mayor no longer has a vote.
Yeah, the 5 yes, yay or nay?
Yay.
You have to show up to these meetings instead of doing it over the phone. Councillor McCabe?
I'm sorry, you know what, I'm trying to follow everybody's discussion, and I'm hearing some and I'm hearing not. So I'm voting on whether or not you have a vote?
Yes, on the committee.
It says in the yellow.
What it says in the yellow. And the 5.
Alright?
It's revising the Municipal Government Act that the mayor of Charlottetown is not a voting member of council committees. The mayor's vote should be reserved for breaking ties at council meetings. Yay or nay?
Oh, I guess, yay, I don't really know.
8-0. Okay,
The other piece, Your Worship.
where to go next?
Just one small word change under 93(1)D. A member had an issue with prohibition, and I think the legal counsel clarified that really it does or does not fit there. And that was just, again, a concern raised, and if you allow the legal counsel to clarify that point, Your Worship.
Oh, yeah, no, that's why she's here. She's,
So
the clock is ticking.
does the word prohibition
doesn't-
fit in that area?
It doesn't seem to fit but, okay, to be clear though, titles don't affect the interpretation of the provision. It's just a heading. It doesn't have any legal effect. So the words that are inside the section is the only thing that's going to count towards the interpretation.
Sorry.
So it's okay to leave it here just for commentary?
It's not going to make
Okay.
an interpretation.
Then we're over to page 5, Your Worship.
Yeah, page 5, I see Mr. Kelly, 107 subsection 2, subsection E, no issue. I brought it up about the disclosure statement, that now it'll have to be every year that we submit it.
Yes, we did not finish that conversation, Your Worship, that it stayed here, but there was no consensus or clarity whether that should or should not be allowed, Your Worship.
Right.
So that's why it's still here.
But if we allow it, then they can determine what goes on that disclosure statement, correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
So, right now, it's pretty simple, but they could provide more detail, right? Correct? if they wanted to.
We are creatures of the province, your worship, and if the province wants to change the form,
Yeah.
Yes.
So
they
after they-
determine what's gonna be on.
Yeah, so just be aware that they could get into more details of what you own, assets, liabilities, and so forth. Councilor Bernard?
So the recommendation here is, this has come from the province, I assume.
Yes.
Yes.
Update this every year. I mean, the MLAs update theirs every year.
Yes, that's why they're doing it. But the difference with the MLAs and the city councilors or municipal councilors, when we go to get a donation, right, we can't get a tax receipt, but MLAs or parties can get tax receipts. That doesn't allow us to do in this
We
situation.
didn't address that at all.
No, so we're the poor cousin.
Can I ask the legal counsel a question, Your Worship?
Yes, sir?
Karen, what is the purpose of it?
What is the purpose of it?
I'll do it every year.
Of having your assets,
The
every
purpose
year
of it
for-
every year is to keep it current, because people's situations change. And so typically, I mean, even when you do it, you could do it today and it changes tomorrow. So in order to keep it relatively current, they say once a year you have to update it. That's the purpose.
but at the end of the day, it is basically, it shouldn't be public's business what I own or I'm involved in or anything along that line, is it? Or is it? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
disclosure statements, he wants to know
Well,
why.
I mean,
disclosure
pretty much
statement.
everybody who's in office these days has to file a disclosure statement. That's pretty
Openness,
standard.
transparency, and accountability.
Yeah. I just don't understand.
Okay.
So I think it's an effort to make individuals accountable for their own personal business as it might interrelate with a business that they conduct on behalf of whatever government entity they're a part of. And I think it allows others to also be more of a watchdog of any conflicts of interest that might exist
Yeah.
if that disclosure statement is done.
More of a conflict than anything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because like really, anybody who does run for public office, they should know that if I own 6 apartments and there's something going on, will I have to remove myself?
Yes, exactly.
Which is only common sense, right?
It does raise that level of
Yeah.
accountability for,
Okay.
particularly for conflicts.
I mean, I owe nothing anyway, but I had to get,
But that's why it's there.
yeah,
That's why it's,
You own your own home?
no Cheryl is.
Sarah owns it all.
Okay.
So, your worship, then we're keeping it the same, your worship?
I guess we have to keep with, what do we say in opposition, that we don't agree with it?
You could, your worship, but right now, this is what they're proposing, that'd be an annual statement, and if you disagree, they're wanting your feedback, whether you
I would
agree or
say,
don't.
I would say that we go back at least every 2 years. Every year seems to go by.
Oh, or after every election.
After every election.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, after every election.
Because that's what we
Which
did in
is
2014.
Which is
2018.
currently the situation now, which I'm.
Let's go with the current legislation.
Before you get sworn in, you have to have that disclosure.
So
Yeah.
let's leave it as it is.
Current legislation.
Yeah, leave it current.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
as Kevin said, he doesn't own a lot, but he doesn't want everybody to know that.
I owe people a lot.
Live stream. Okay.
So the next piece, your worship, is, a member brought up the issue around, the last part of 3.1, whereby, I'll read it, a code of conduct bylaw shall not include any provisions as a sanction that would result in a member of council who contravenes the code of conduct being disqualified from council or guilty of an offense. Question rose whether or not if there was a member of council who made an assault against an individual, then that is a criminal code violation. If that is the case, how can that be guilty of an offense? And so there needs to be some clarity again around what they're trying to achieve or what they're trying to clarify. Because again, depending upon what the code violation is, there may or may not be a criminal or other violation that would be a guilty of an offense if found guilty by a court, for sure.
And the language is not limited to a criminal code offense, it's just an offense, so that's pretty broad language. If they had a more limited intent, then perhaps it would be helpful to know what the offense is supposed to relate to.
So if you're okay with that, we would say we need clarity around their intent there, Your Worship.
Yeah.
If not, any other issues there? Going to page 6.
Is that all right with everybody to go on? Good?
So under section 119.1, In terms of,
So just, can I go back to that?
Which one?
Just the one we just done. So what happens if an elected official is charged with an offense outside? Is this, that hasn't changed here?
What it's saying is, if you are found to be, if you are found to be in breach of the code of conduct, the councilor's code of conduct, then you cannot by bylaw say, you were found in breach of the code of conduct, now you can't be a councilor.
Right.
Right, so the government is reserving to itself, it only has the ability to set up when somebody might actually lose
Okay,
their
so they do have that,
The
jurisdiction.
province would have that
Yeah.
jurisdiction, and they're not giving it to the city under its bylaws.
No,
to
that,
be
that's
able to
fine, I
check.
just, I think depending on the offense, I think some.
Similarly, I think they're saying that you can't be guilty of an offense, so it's not that you can create a criminal code offense, you can't. I guess I'm just not sure what it means if for you to be able to set up an offense in your bylaw, to what end, I guess.
Right.
Because under the bylaw, as you know, you can fine somebody, you
Right.
can require an apology, you can do a bunch of different things,
Yeah,
right?
3 or 4.
But you don't, it doesn't point to set up some kind of an offense, and I'm not exactly sure, I don't exactly know what they mean when they say you can't create an offense by being in breach of the code of conduct, so I think you probably want some clarity around that. You can't do it, whatever it is, but what is it?
So should that?
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I wonder if that should come out then. Guilty of an offense.
Unless there's something that is specific. Like, for example, you know, if you're, I don't know, you're guilty of an offense and maybe you're guilty of a second offense, and so there's some greater penalty that pertains to as a result of being found guilty of a second offense. Honestly, I don't quite know what they're driving at.
Well, it sounds to me from what I'm reading is that you can't be disqualified if you're guilty of an offense.
No, I don't think that's what it means.
It
It says that the code of conduct shall not include any provision. You cannot set up in your code of conduct a provision that is a sanction, disqualifies somebody from council or
Right.
says, hey, you breached the code of conduct, you are now guilty of an offense. And they're saying
Oh, okay, I get you that, yeah.
Yeah,
I get you that,
but
yeah.
I'm just not sure what the consequence of the offense part is. What does that mean? Because
So-
I can do lots of other things that are fairly intrusive, right? Like I
Yeah.
can take away your remuneration,
Yeah.
I can do lots of things. So I guess I'm not sure what they're
But they
driving
can't come
at.
out and say you're guilty of an offense, so we're
Correct.
gonna do this, and
No.
code of
You
conduct.
can
Yeah.
be in breach of the code of conduct, but I can't say that you committed an offense per se.
Yes.
And it may be as simple as they don't want you to have the ability to create either not criminal, but quasi-criminal type situations with regard to a council. All you can do is impose the penalties that you have by bylaw put forward, but you can't forever and a day have it on somebody's record that, yep, I was guilty of an offense because I breached the code of conduct.
So
It may be as simple as that.
and my concern, and it actually goes beyond this, Karen, it's always been kind of blown away when you have an elected official, whether here or other jurisdictions, they get charged with a serious offense, but there's nothing happens with the elected official. And it's because, well, they didn't actually do time in jail, they got to do at least 6 months in jail.
And you're right, and
That's-
there have been other members elected who have served from jail, and who, right?
To me, that's ridiculous.
So, here's the thing, and this is sort of the democratic principle that is in play, and you may agree with it or not, but the underlying principle is, if you were elected, unless you have misconducted yourself in relation to the office, right? Then you only don't get elected again if you don't reoffer, or you reoffer and you don't get elected. But I could try to get reelected from prison if I could pull it up. So they're saying that's for the voters to decide, not for council as a consequence of some misconduct outside the office of council to decide.
So the minister doesn't have jurisdiction on this.
Not currently, no.
Okay, no.
Is that right?
No. Well, the 2 offenses, right, Karen? Summary and indictable, right?
I'll preface my comments with saying that I don't do criminal law, but yes, from 101 way back when,
Yeah.
two kinds of offenses, so.
Summary and indictable. Indictable, okay, the criminal code.
Yep.
That's good to know. Okay, is that all right, Council? Okay.
so under section 119, Your Worship, as we use when we go into closed session, they're providing clarity around number C about an identifiable individual, including a municipal employee or an employee of the controlled corporation. And I don't think anybody had an issue with that last time, but we were having discussion on whether or not there should be some parameters around pre-release of budget and/or policies, and so in here we are proposing, if council would agree, such as in Saskatchewan or BC, that 119 would be number L, discussions respecting the proposed provisions of municipal services or budgets that are at their preliminary stages, your worship, if that is council's wish.
I'm okay with that.
Good.
Yep.
Do you have a question, Councillor Yanko?
I just have a question.
Clarification.
Why is this important to us?
Although it's done now in some context, I guess it's asking for greater clarity. Other CEOs from other areas also have the same question because it is a fine line. And so we're just asking for a more definitive definition as to what can and cannot be discussed.
And can I just follow?
Oh, go right ahead.
And so that doesn't then limit those public meetings that we have pre-budget time so that the public can still see the
Oh, yeah,
budget
sure.
before?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that won't change?
This is just the drafting of the documents to get prepared to bring to the public and to council.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
And Councillor, now we referred to, we're going to closed session because
Yes.
section
Yeah,
119 subsection A, B, C, well, this just gives clarification.
okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, sir?
The only other one on page 6 is the last piece. There was a question whether or not what defines unable. Is unable meaning that your home and, I don't know, sickness, family issue, or car breakdown. I guess if does it need a definition, or are you okay with it as it is? Again, it was a point raised, and it's here for your deliberations whether or not it is a concern by the majority of council.
I don't see an issue with that.
Councillor Yanko, question?
I do.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That's the purpose of it. That's why we got legal counsel here.
So correct me if I'm wrong, your worship, what we want some clarification around is what decides whether or not you can teleconference in?
Yeah.
Does that mean, I would prefer to be home? Or is it, like, for example, tonight, Council McCabe is sick,
Right.
but she's still calling in, so
Yeah.
she shouldn't be here tonight. So that's a good reason to call in.
Very good reason.
Which is allowed under the current legislation.
Right, and so you're asking for clarification, so people just can't say, I'm just gonna call in because I don't want to come in.
That's what some members feel, that we need maybe greater clarity around what that would be.
Right,
Because right now if you're away, or if you're sick, or a family member is sick, obviously you stay home and can call in, or if you're on the road, you can also discuss that as well.
okay. I think that,
Do you want Karen to
she
give?
had a question, she was
Councilman?
gonna speak.
I'm just saying, like, when you don't define a word in a statute, and the word takes on its ordinary English meaning, that general meaning that we all understand it to be. And sometimes in a word like unable, when you try to define all the situations that are caught within unable, you're not going to cover up all the situations, you're going to leave things out, and then unable is going to take on a meaning that would be different than what it would be generally understood to be. I agree that when you use a word like unable, you're leaving some discretion in council, or whoever is in charge of council, to determine whether or not someone's reason for not attending is appropriate or not. But I think there's more challenge if you actually try to define such a generally used and understood word. So,
Who polices it?
Yeah.
So we do definitely need some clarification.
We're going to have a
So,
teleconference.
it's-
Thank you.
Based on,
That's why I don't phone in there, Mr. Kelly. I never phone in.
Sure.
I
Never get
will
me
say
phoned.
this, that the wording is curious because it said, subject to subsection 3, the council meeting may be conducted by electronic means if authorized by council procedure bylaw, so it is, if the council members are unable to meet in person. So it's almost like saying we're having a meeting where nobody attends because there's some reason. Like what we're used to is an individual counselor, so for example, this evening, Councillor McCabe, sorry to hear that you're sick, right, isn't able to attend, but this isn't really addressing that issue where an individual counselor, this would be, for example, during COVID, when no one could meet.
Right.
That would be, we are unable to meet as a council in person, so we're gonna hold a completely electronic,
WebEx and.
yep, exactly, whatever it is, Zoom or whatever
yeah.
So that's the point that needs to be clarified, whether it's members or member.
Yeah, well, it says members,
Yeah.
right? So.
That's
if-
plural,
I think
10
if-
councillors.
If we need, there needs to be some clarity around an individual council member not being able to attend, then perhaps you might want to seek that clarity.
But I'm like the mayor too, but his question is, I mean, who's gonna police it? Because like I can sit home, I mean, watch Compass and be on my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't wanna drive into Queen Street. You know, really. But we all show up and that's the thing, so,
And Councillor Ramsey, you always show up.
too much.
So going to page 7, your worship.
Page 7.
It almost needs its own, does it, Mr. Kelly?
Sorry?
That last one we just discussed, it also almost needs its own for the, like, when we're meeting as a group, but one person, for whatever reason, cannot meet.
Is able to.
Yeah, that
be
should have
individual. And that's
should
what-
be addressed separately from the one that's presented here.
And that's what the legal had said. That's the issue at hand.
And do we deal with it under procedural bylaw or under, how do we deal with it?
Well, this is the governing legislation.
I know, but we wouldn't deal with it here.
Oh, I think that you could deal with it in the MJ and say that, you wouldn't define it again, but you would say that, it could be like a C, so, we can have the whole meeting electronically, and you could set it up, you could either define it in the bylaw and say, an individual council member is unable to attend, then they could attend electronically. Okay, same sort of thing, it would be an individual thing, or you could set it up so that you have that ability to deal with it under your procedural bylaw and say that they're.
It should be in the same document.
It seems
You know
like
what I
it
mean,
would
together.
make sense to have
Yeah.
it all in one place and
The
opposed to
group.
two places. Again, you're not going to define what unable is, you're just
No.
making it clear that it's not just the entire council meeting, but it would also be at a council meeting, individual council members.
Exactly.
would be able to-
Yeah. Doesn't
All right
matter
with
where you
that?
put it.
Councillor Duffy, you're all right with that?
Yeah, as long as it's in the same document, so people can see the relationship to the other.
Okay, page 8.
Page 7, your worship.
Oh, 7, okay.
Section
Ahead of myself.
122.7, a member brought up the issue about, and again, I don't know what council wishes to do, that if you are on a conference, or if you are calling in, or if we're doing by WebEx or whatever, that who is in the room or who is in the area who may hear conversations of council in closed session. There was a concern raised there whether or not there's anything else that could be done to reinforce or to bring forth the strength of confidentiality in those cases, Your Worship.
Well, I never thought of that. When we went in closed session.
Because
That's
you're
what
calling-
I'm saying.
Whether you're calling from on the road or from the office or from home or whatever, there's just some concern.
Calling from home and you're ready to watch Monday Night Football, yeah. No, how do you deal with that?
That's exactly, that's the same question as before, right?
Well, usually when things are convenient, there's usually a downside to them, and this is the downside.
Yeah.
They may just have to be cut off for the closed session. The closed sessions aren't
You have to be in
transmitted.
person.
You have to be in person.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
Works for me, because I got Bluetooth, goes right to the internet.
Like I can tell you,
That's
for
the beauty,
example, in
Luke.
court proceedings when they do it, or in proctoring for exams now, they'll make you hold your camera up and show the room to show that you're in an enclosed space. And that's good as a moment, a snapshot in time. It's like, no, right now there's nobody there. And then there's an element of trust that's gonna have to kick in, that when you're in a closed session, perhaps all councilors declare that, yes, I'm, in a private room or a private
I
space.
told you, Mr. Kelly, there was gonna be some issues with this teleconference.
Or-
I told you this.
Or
Yeah, it can be challenging.
closed session, nobody called it,
Yeah,
You lose your quorum.
if you think it's.
But
You
You
could,
lose your quorum.
yeah.
you could lose your quorum.
And the rules
And if
apply.
you're gonna have, and if you're
Meeting's
gonna have the
over.
ability to hold an entire council session by teleconference, then you're gonna have to be able to conduct business in a closed session as well. So I'm not sure that you can say, you can't hold a council meeting, and now we can't do anything in closed session either because we can't be in person. So I think that might cause you more trouble on the other end than you're anticipating.
Go ahead there, Councilor Cloud.
But wouldn't the matter of confidentiality, whether you're here or whether you're at home in a meeting, it's still your responsibility to keep what's confidential, right? So it shouldn't change really. If it does leak that you had told people or people, well, then you're treated the same as if you walked out here and told somebody down the street. There shouldn't be any difference.
And it may be, for example, just on that point, that you would put in your procedural bylaw that, anytime you are party to a closed meeting, that you have an obligation as a councillor to ensure that
That's
you are
right.
in a
That's
space
probably
where
not
no
good.
one
That's a
can.
good idea.
That's,
Yeah, that makes sense.
we could do a lot with the procedural bylaw
Yeah.
on some of these issues.
It's a good point.
That one might work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we'll make.
I didn't hear all that, Karen, what was that?
Good.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, perhaps under the procedural bylaw, you could say that where you are participating remotely, or a meeting is being held remotely, and it was in a closed session, that everybody has that positive duty to ensure that they are in a confidential space where they can't be overheard, either, what's being said or what they're saying.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, going on to
Thank you,
page
Karen.
8, Your Worship, there is nothing there unless council has any issues on page 8.
No, we close it off, that's pretty good.
Going on to page 9, last section, in terms of the timeframes for budget. Over the last couple of years, with the change of the March 31st, it has been problematic to get through audit processes and to get through the province's time frame of July 15th, Your Worship. And based upon past conversation and past request, we'd like to go back and see if we can seek out October 30th to be the time frame and not July 15th, Your Worship.
Good luck.
Don't ask, you don't get, Your Worship, so you can ask and see what happens.
Well, I think if you look at the history, it's normally taken 6 months to do the audit.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
with the change now, we're losing 3 months.
Yeah.
So you're gonna run into being overage every year.
Yeah.
I think you have to ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea, yes.
Yeah, because the fiscal year, when it ended December 31st, we had until June 30 to present the audit statements.
That's
Right.
Right.
Now
For May, June.
it's July 15th, which is 3.5 months.
But our budget session doesn't end until the end of March. You got
No, no,
May,
no,
June.
no.
So you got 3 months, cuts off half.
Well, so it's July 15th is not good, so you're saying October 30th?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Worship. So,
October 31st.
if council agree, October 30th, Your Worship.
The problem, I think, with the province on that is that every other municipality seems to be able to get theirs in on time. They're not near as big a city. It's a lot more odd than the city of Carolina. Especially when we're doing inventory. We never used to do inventory before. We only started counting inventory 2 years ago. There's a ton of inventory to count.
That's something the province gotta realize too, that we are the capital city and we're a big thing.
And Birthplace Confederation.
And like, we're not like a smaller community, but they're dealing with us the same way as they would with the smaller community, like with time limits and all that stuff. That's a minor issue.
But
Hey.
just as a side note for that.
You can go right in.
In respect to the smaller communities, they don't have the infrastructure
Or,
Right.
and.
or the office staff.
So therefore,
Yeah.
you can compare the two probably in some ways,
Yeah.
a little bit.
So if council agrees, Your Worship, we'll move
Yeah.
on.
Yes, we're going to page 10?
Yes, Your Worship. And so the only issue, I think under the legislation, they refer to the original code, but we just want to make sure that they use the 2015 code, Your Worship, and not the, although it is stated, I think that's when it first came into legislation or into
I think that's
being.
the purpose of going with 1988, because it's the original legislation, is it not?
I'm
bill-
not sure that means so in our revised statutes, we date them all 1988. That's just the date, that's how they name the statute, that's not necessarily naming the code.
Right.
No.
We just want to make sure that they adhere to the 2000, or the current code, I guess is what we're trying to
Right, so
state.
you have to look in the
Regulation.
Codes Act, RSPI 1988, Cap B 5.1, to see what it says. But this 1988 has got nothing to do with what code would be
No.
referenced in that. It would just be, so if it doesn't reference the code that you want inside that Codes Act, you would have to amend the Codes Act to understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not an issue, we'll
It's just
check.
It's the
think-
last time that we did revised statutes of PI, was unbelievably so, in 1998, so that's why it's 1998.
With regards,
1988, sorry.
sorry, Doug?
181?
Yeah, and it's just a misheading in the legislation, it's not a big thing, we just wanted to clarify that, on your worship, because this part 181 is, under the current document, is the regulated use of streets, and this is not that part of it, so we're just trying to clarify that point.
Good.
And there's no other issues on that page.
Page
Worship.
10?
On page 11, Worship.
Okay. What's
So,
on page 11?
page 11, there is, for the first part, no issue. The other pieces that we've had discussions with off and on is additional revenue sources, and such as the transfer, municipal liquor service fee, event ticketing fee, as well as the municipal property tax exemptions. And so that is here if we would provide the province the ability to amend the MJ to allow these to occur, and it's going forward for their consideration if council would concur, Your Worship.
Yeah, so we
On the
added,
first part?
we added 162. Right, we're adding what's in yellow?
We're adding to 162 other revenues, that's correct. And with regards to the charter, that is a 2+ year process, depending upon the intensity of discussions with the province. And so they are aware that we have that desire, but at this stage, for this event, they just want this in by tomorrow so they can propose these changes in the upcoming session. So we are working on that document for council, and that'll come back here, but they're aware that we have an interest in going down that road of discussion. Your Worship. The other piece is
Iraq appeals?
Iraq appeals. It's not inside this legislation,
No.
but if you recall, there has been frustration from council how long it's taken for Iraq to either hear an appeal or to propose a decision on an appeal that they've heard. In other jurisdictions, there's legislated and or timeframes self-imposed that, such as in Nova Scotia, as we understand it, the Utility Review Board imposed a 90-day timeframe to respond after appeals. And so this council is just putting their concern out there that they'd like to have that documentation or that legislation updated to reflect some definitive timeframes.
Sure.
But in Halifax or Nova Scotia, the Utility Review Board just reviews utilities, right? It doesn't show planning act?
Yes, Your Worship.
No, covers some, that was just utilities.
No, it's all Your Worship.
Okay, is that all right? Good?
Yeah,
Move on?
There-
Just one question?
If it's okay, we'll refine it slightly based upon the commentary and forward it down to the province. Worship.
Councillor Yankoff.
I just have one question, not about all the changes, but one that I can't seem to find an answer to in the act, and that is around the in-camera sessions. So that's what we need to describe it as an example. If I'm not a member of a committee, but I can sit in on that committee meeting just like everyone in the public can, but if that committee goes into a closed session, can I go into the closed session even though I'm not a member of that committee? And if I can't, why can't I? I have.
Well, you have all the rights and privileges of a councillor, Gwyn.
Right, but there's some discrepancy around can you or can't. I've heard one situation where no, you can't. I've heard another situation where yes, you can. So I just wanted a definitive answer. Can you or can't you?
So the council and legal counsel advised it's best to put that in the procedural bylaw, and that way you can clarify whether you do allow or not allow, and that would fix that concern once and for all.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, what's in a procedural bylaw now? Because there's no answer
Nothing.
to that question.
It hasn't been addressed.
Which is why I don't always get the same
That's,
answer.
but it's a good point to put in there, and that way it will become
It's
definitive.
always been in the past, if you had a closed session, that was up to the chair. And it's usually because you're in a closed session, you're responsible for keeping confidential information in that meeting. So the more you let in that's not part of the committee, so usually, whether it's a policy or an unwritten policy, that's the way it always was.
It's the chair's call, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That a fellow councillor can
It
stay in.
depends what issues are on the
Councillor,
docket.
just keep that in mind for the review of the procedural bylaw, because I think we're going to make some changes to the procedural bylaw.
And does that come under just council as a whole?
Yes.
That falls under that?
It will go from the CAC,
It goes to your committee.
and then it comes here.
Then we won't forget that, because I'm sure.
No.
Okay.
So, Richard, if we could have a motion to refer council's commentary as per this documentation down for their consideration, dated, put today's date on the October 2020, Richard.
Okay, do we have a moved by Councillor Duffy, second by Councillor McLeod, to approve the amendments of the MGA, or in our suggestions
To refer the document to the
regarding this document? And the document is titled Municipal Government Act Proposed Amendments. Correct?
Dated October 20th, 2020, Your Worship.
What's that?
Dated October 20th, 2020.
Yeah, October 20, 2020.
Yeah.
Please put up your hand if you're in favor. Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Twill.
In favor?
Thank you. 8-0. There you are, sir. Okay. So we do have to keep legal counsel here for the next part.
Yes, Your Worship.
So, Chief, we're gonna, did you have something to add?
No,
Just one
I
second.
do. I just had to ask permission for you for something, and that is that I have a Capital Cities Commission online board meeting at 8 p.m., which means I will need to leave here for 7:30 to get myself set up for Teams.
We'll be done.
Just wanted to give you.
We're gonna move very quickly because some people have things to do. and-
Places to go.
So we're heading into closed session, Your Worship.
Yeah, I just have to find my agenda. Okay. So we have the subsections too, okay. Let's motion to move into a closed session as per section 119, subsection 1D and F of the Municipal Government Act of Prince Edward Island. Moved by Councillor McLeod, second by Councillor Ramsey, all in favor? Okay. Could I just ask